Heroes were first introduced in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX era, the obvious most known ones being the Elemental Heroes, played by Jaden Yuki. However, if you were a more edgy teenager like myself, you probably preferred the far cooler, dark version of these little rascals, the Destiny Heroes. Piloted by Aster Phoenix, Destiny Heroes were all about, well, absolutely nothing. When they were first introduced in the Enemy of Justice set in May 2006, these cards basically had no win condition or goal. They were simply cool cards with neat effects from the anime. Doomlord was really gimmicky removal, Tenacious was really gimmicky revival, Dreadmaster was a mess of a boss monster, and Clock Tower Prison was the slowest Swords of Revealing Light in history, with the most mediocre payoff imaginable on top of that. There was, however, one interesting Destiny hero. Destiny Hero Diamond Dude allowed you to check the top of your deck for a spell card, and if you got lucky, you'd be allowed to activate it the next turn. This card will come back later in this video. That said, the Destiny heroes still looked like a casual anime archetype that would not see much competitive playability at the time of this set's release. But all of that would change with the release of the Duelist pack Aster Phoenix in February of 2007. One of the best pulls in this set was actually the subscribe button, and if you want to pull this amazing card, you can do so right now by pressing subscribe under this video. Kidding aside, these videos are far more work than my usual videos, so if you want to see more of them, I really gotta see they're worth doing, so thank you so much for subscribing. The aforementioned Duelist pack would reprint and introduce a variety of fan-favorite Aster Phoenix cards, but we'll be focusing on two of them, Destiny Hero Malicious and Destiny Draw. I actually remember as a kid pulling together all of my birthday money to buy 2 copies of each from the local store, which stocked singles. I even still own these exact cards from back then. The introduction of these 2 powerful cards cannot be overstated. Malicious would essentially give you a free level 6 monster when it hit the graveyard by summoning another copy of itself from the deck. And when said copy would hit the graveyard, you would then get another copy of himself from your deck. This essentially meant 1 Malicious in the graveyard equaled 2 free special summons in an age where special summoning was a rarity. The first deck to really abuse this was the Diamond Dude Turbo deck. This deck would be filled to the brim with spell cards, which Destiny Hero Diamond Dude could find on the top of the deck, whilst utilizing the free Malicious bodies for Monster Gate or as a tribute for Jinzo or Dark Magician of Chaos. The latter could then also recycle some of your more powerful spell cards. Shonen Jump St. Louis in 2007 was won by Carlo Perez, piloting his Diamond Dude deck. Though interestingly, this was in a time where Stratos, Dimension Fusion, and Divine Sword Phoenix Blade were at 3 copies, so you know a lot more heinous things were happening than just some cute Malicious abuse. Destiny Draw was the consistency card released for the Destiny Hero archetype. It would allow you to discard 1 Destiny Hero and then draw 2 cards. And guess which Destiny Hero you just loved to get into the graveyard? Of course, Malicious. People were catching on that these hero decks could get out of hand, and so on the March 2007 Forbidden Unlimited list, Elemental Hero Stratos, the best searcher for the archetype, was instantly limited to 1. It would quickly become apparent that this would not stop the hero train, however, as that same month Diamond Dude Turbo would win another Shonen Jump championship, this time in Columbus, piloted by Mark Glass. In May 2007, SJC Philadelphia was won by Jesse Samek with a Destiny Hero Trooper Monarch deck. And in June 2007, SJC Minneapolis was won by Shane Scurry with a Destiny Hero Beatdown deck. It had become obvious that the March hit to Stratos was not enough, and that these Destiny Hero cards were a dominant force still, and so Konami had to step in to deal with this threat once again. In September 2007, we saw the first hits to the Destiny Hero archetype itself. Destiny Hero Disc Commander was limited to 1, and Destiny Hero Malicious was semi-limited to 2. As veteran players of the game will know, This would be the first of many adventures Malicious would go on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Unlimited list. That same month, Shonen Jump Washington would be won by Jonathan LaBounty, piloting his Destiny Hero Monarch deck, showing Malicious was far from dead. Whilst you could no longer go absolutely ham with a pure focus on Destiny Heroes, Malicious' ability to give a free body even at just 2 copies would allow you to tribute summon your Monarch monsters more easily, and this was impactful enough to warrant an inclusion in these decks.
Destiny Hero Malicious is a pretty insane card considering it's a brick you want to draw, but not alone, you want to see it with a combo of other cards like Destiny Draw or Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. It's a true +1 in a time where Konami really peeled back on being allowed any +1s in the game. Also, Disc Commander goes alongside it as another option for a +1, but being able to not normal summon and tribute out a Monarch in tandem with it in one turn is something that almost no other card would offer, as long as you got to the options to be able to do that quickly, like Destiny Draw.
In February 2008, Yu-Gi-Oh! Would see one of its most iconic moments of power creep with the release of the Phantom Darkness set. This booster introduced powerful generic dark attribute support, like Armageddon Knight, sending a dark monster from the deck to the graveyard. If you want to know why that's broken, check out my video on Foolish Burial after watching this video. It also introduced cards like Dark Grepher, which is Armageddon Knight's most costly brother, Allure of Darkness, which is like a better Destiny draw for all dark monsters, and most importantly, Dark Armed Dragon. Dark Armed Dragon relied on having exactly 3 dark monsters in the graveyard to be summoned, and so naturally Destiny Draw, a card placing exactly 1 Destiny hero in the graveyard, was a great way to fix your numbers whilst also really plussing. Shonen Jump Costa Mesa would be won by Lazaro Bellido in March of 2008 with his Dark Armed Return deck. And while the deck featured the all-important Destiny Draw with some copies of Destiny Hero Dasher, a Destiny Hero Fearmonger, and a Destiny Hero Disc Commander, Malicious was nowhere to be seen in this list. Was this really the end for Malicious? Of course not. That same month, SJC Columbus would be won by Jerry Wang with that same Dark Armed Return deck, but this list would in fact feature Destiny Hero Malicious, along with a variety of other Destiny Hero cards. In September of 2008, Destiny Hero Malicious was freed from its chains of the Forbidden Unlimited list, and once again could be played at 3 copies in a player's decks, and that same month, Mali would get a whole bunch of new friends who couldn't wait to play with him. The Duelist Genesis set was the first set of the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D era, and introduced a powerful new summoning mechanic, the Synchro Summon. This summon would require 2 or more monsters whose combined levels equaled the level of the Synchro monster, and one of those monsters had to be a tuner. The most powerful Synchro monsters naturally had high levels, and most tuner monsters had low levels. This meant you were really looking for an easy to summon, high level monster that could combine with these low level tuners. Krebons is level 2. Stardust Dragon is level 8. What's 8 minus 2? Using the Forbidden Unlimited list not to balance the game, but instead to sell packs? That's what I call malicious.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
It turns out Destiny Hero Malicious was the perfect partner for the new Synchro support. And so Yu-Gi-Oh! Entered a new Tier 0 format. Teledad, an abbreviation for Emergency Teleport, and Dark Armed Dragon, is a deck comprised of the shell of the Dad return decks of the previous meta, combined with the new Psycho Synchro support. Destiny Draw and Malicious would give you free value and level 6 bodies, whilst Emergency Teleport would give you free level 2 tuners in the form of Krebons. This meant you could freely make Stardust Dragon, Thought Ruler Archfiend, Colossal Fighter, and Red Dragon Archfiend. Another crucial combination was Elemental Hero Stratos, a level 4, with a level 2 Krebons to make the powerful Goyo Guardian. The next 9 Shonen Jump championships between September 2008 and April 2009 would all be won by variations of the Teledad deck. later getting new additions like Plague Spreader Zombie and Black Rose Dragon with the release of Crossroads of Chaos. Even a harsh Forbidden and Limited list in March 2009, limiting Dark Arm Dragon, limiting Plague Spreader Zombie, limiting Emergency Teleport, semi-limiting Allure of Darkness, and yes, naturally, semi-limiting our friend Destiny Hero Malicious once again, was not enough to stop Jeff Jones from winning SJC Anaheim with Teledad in April 2009. So here we are once again, Destiny Hero Malicious semi-limited. We went from 3 to 2 to 3 to 2. This is almost like a sick joke, an abusive relationship where our little Malicious is being gaslit into thinking he's the problem when he has never done anything wrong. I will not stand for this. Motherfucker! Malicious mostly didn't do much during both the Zexal and Arc V era. It's hard to Xyz summon with Mali as it really only generates bodies when in the graveyard, and overlaying for Xyz doesn't put Mali in grave. Nor can he generate 2 level 6s on the board at a single time. Pendulum also mostly led to summon spamming that made Malicious relatively irrelevant. There was a dark synchro deck with Cyframe Lord Omega at one point, but this was not a major contender or threat. While Mali was hibernating during these two eras, Konami was cooking up a whole new summoning mechanic, the Link Summon. This summoning method didn't particularly rely on specific levels or tuners or anything like that. What Link monsters really needed was sheer numbers of bodies. And if there's one thing our dapper Destiny hero can provide, it's bodies. In 2018, we saw the rise of a variety of Dark Warrior spam decks. These would combine the Gogi engine with our old friend Armageddon Knight, and of course, Destiny Hero Malicious. What really pushed this over the edge was the addition of Isolde, given that both Malicious and Armageddon Knight are warriors. The various iterations of these types of decks essentially were always attempting to pull off the most toxic win conditions available at the time. Firewall FTKing with danger cards, Gumblar hand looping, and so much more. While the addition of Malicious depended on whether the deck required Isolde, free bodies was the name of the game. In September 2018, renowned duelist Jesse Kotton took a dark hero deck to the famous 200 YCS in Columbus, eventually reaching top 64. This deck naturally abused Firewall Dragon to Gumblar loop the opponent, which essentially meant your opponent had to play the game without cards in their hand. And of course, it played Malicious for Isolde.
Destiny Hero Malicious was a huge part of my 200th YCS Dark Hero deck. It was used as the normal extended where I could send it off Armageddon Knight and go into Isolde plays, but with this deck, it was even more than that, because I got to use the hero tag to make Darklaw and combo that with Gumblar to rip cards in their hand, keep them banished, and then Darklaw rip another card. What you'd often do is leave the Malicious on the field at the end of the turn, if you could afford to, and then on their turn, match change with the Darklaw and trigger the Gumblar's effect to rip 2 more cards, effectively ripping opponent's hand and putting up a floodgate at the same time.
The 200 YCS would end up being won by Andres Torres, another very known duelist with his Burning Abyss deck, and wouldn't you know it, it ran Malicious at 3 copies. December 2018, Firewall Dragon was banned, signaling the end of the FTK era, alongside the limitation of Armageddon Knight and Malicious going to 2. Despite the banning of Firewall, the Dark Piles featuring Malicious had not ran out of steam just yet, because in February of 2019, we saw another iteration of the deck being piloted by Dinka Bowie at YCS Düsseldorf. Dark Warrior Danger Orcust. This deck essentially played all the broken Dark engines, whilst also getting to abuse one of the most ridiculous floodgate monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh history, Azathoth. It could also send Eradicator Epidemic Virus from the deck to the graveyard with Lightstorm Curious to then set it with Nightmare Griffin, and essentially ensure your opponent did not have access to spells or traps depending on the matchup. Dinka ended up reaching 3rd place at this YCS. Now, with a lot of the unfair generic Link monsters being hit, we saw the rise of some powerful archetypes that didn't necessarily benefit from all the free bodies a Danger Warrior engine could give. And thus, it was time for decks like Sky Striker, Salamangrade, and Orcust to fully take the stage. Just kidding! A year after YCS Niagara was won by Gabe Vargas with a danger-based dark deck, the next YCS Niagara in September 2019 was also won by a danger spam deck. That being said, this felt more like an outlier, as this time was definitely more dominated by the likes of Salad, Striker, Thunder, and Orcust. In October 2019, we had another ban list, and guess what happened? Malicious was put back to 3! Hooray! This malicious change did not end up impacting the meta, as the best decks were still just mostly Striker, Orcust, and Striker Orcust. If you want to learn more about that, make sure to check out my IP Masquerena video after watching this one. In April 2020, there was yet another ban list, and guess what happened? Malicious was put back to 2! During the COVID years, Mali did not see particularly much play. A variety of hero decks would naturally play it, but this deck would not leave the rogue tier. One interesting development was the release of the Burst of Destiny set in November 2021. Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer, or DPE for short, was the big meta-changing boss inside this set. And while it was technically possible to run Malicious alongside it, most players chose for the pair of Destiny Hero Celestial and Destiny Hero Dasher. That doesn't mean this set did nothing for Mali, however, as it also contained Destiny Hero Denier. This new Destiny Hero would allow you to place your Malicious from the Banish Zone on the top of your deck, and thus when you banished a Malicious to special summon your second copy, Denier would put the banished copy back into the deck, ready to utilize Mali's effect once again. It's like Konami really wanted you to use Malicious twice, just as if it was still at 3, but without actually putting it to 3, or well, leaving it at 3, ever. Denier muddied the water, and Malicious might as well be at 2.5 at the time of this card's release. Despite this, Malicious did not see any more major success. It's like the game mostly moved beyond generic empty body spam, and the metagame started demanding these empty bodies to now also have powerful effects themselves, or they had to be tuners to be abused with Crystron Halke Fibrax. The first time Malicious would become a valid option again would be with the release of Tearlaments in Power of the Elements. While most players did not end up running it in their final builds, Mali was technically an option to be played in the first Danger tier decks debuting at the European Championships of 2022. Just like all those years ago, Mali would be combined with Dark Grepher and Danger monsters to link climb into Curious the Lightsworn Dominion more easily. But it turned out Mali was too bricky to make the final cut. After this, Mali saw a little success still at the rogue level inside hero decks, as it always has. Heroes, funnily enough, filled a few niches throughout these last years. During the tier format, they could make a Dark Law, which could theoretically stop Tearlaments from playing the game. And during the Kashtira format, heroes could give the Cash players a Destiny Hero Dark Angel on their board, so they couldn't summon their Kashtira monsters. All this was still mostly relegated to the bottom tables, however, as the hero archetype had simply been power crept. It did make top 32 at the NAWCQ of 2023, as well as day 2 at the 250th YCS in London, piloted by none other than Joseph Rothschild, aka MBT.
Destiny Hero Malicious is indispensable to Hero. The way the deck functions right now relies a lot on the individual card Extra Hero Cross Crusader. This card can summon a Destiny Hero monster from your graveyard, and you absolutely need to have one in play. But importantly, it can also tribute a hero in order to grab a hero from your deck to your hand. This makes it functionally your entire setup, provided you have access to a Destiny hero that can replace itself. And at present, the list of heroes that do that is pretty much just Malicious. Your mainline combo is pretty flexible, but over the course of the turn, you'll probably be using Vision Hero Vion to send Destiny Hero Malicious to the graveyard, then Cross Crusader to add a Destiny Hero Denier to your hand. Malicious is also important because it can be one of the 2 materials for Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. It's level 6. So by going through this setup, you can almost guarantee access to one of the most powerful cards in the game. And he's even great if you draw him, since you expect to send a card from your hand to the graveyard with Vision Hero Ferris anyway.
In October 2023, at YCS Dortmund, Malicious would make a final splash inside a new Tearlaments brew piloted by Gabriel Netz and Henry Bancroft from the Disciples team. reaching top 8 and top 64.
And YCS Dortmund in November last year. O'Malley is one of my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh cards of all time, and it took a very important role in that deck. You can fuse it with a tier element effect, which Destiny Hero Dangerous. Destiny Hero Dangerous effect, pitch a card, dump it under Mali, summon Mali, basically get like reliable access to Beatrice. And Beatrice at the time was the deck's win condition because you only had one Agid and one Cowback, but you basically could search for them by making Beatrice. It also synergized well with Denier. You got a bunch of monsters for link spam and cross-chip plays.
Beatrice being one of the last monsters legal in the game, able to send specific cards from the deck to the graveyard, was a very powerful end board piece. And this Destiny Hero variant would end up becoming one of the 2 most popular variants of Tearlaments after it was slaughtered on the ban list. In April 2024, we just received the most recent ban list, and of course, we had to see the return of our favorite problem child, Malicious back to 3, baby! I can't wait for March 2025, where he will be put back to 2, so we can keep reliving this cycle over and over again. Malicious is essentially sitting on a Ferris wheel, and whenever his card is at the top, he's put to 3, and when the card is at the bottom, he's put to 2, forever stuck in this infinite loop.
Hilariously, an extra Malicious doesn't actually do a lot for Hero. Destiny Hero Denier was functionally an olive branch to the Hero community. A love letter that all but said, hey, we're sorry we have to keep Malicious on the list for I-sold reasons, so we'll let you all play with 3 copies of the card while everyone else has to deal with 2. At this point, Hero already has a sufficient end board with more material than you can shake a stick at. Maybe an extra Malicious gets like a Dread Decimator on your end board, but oh boy, attack boosts. And because Malicious banishes for cost, it doesn't even really help Hero play through an additional hand trap. If your opponent activates Ash Blossom on your Malicious, you are not going to have access to that Malicious, no matter how many copies are in your deck. For this reason, a significant amount of Hero decks after the ban list change are still playing 2 Malicious. You don't want to draw 2 copies.
While no one can predict the future, over the years it has become evident that while Malicious creating free bodies is powerful, it turns out the best meta strategies these days not only generate free bodies, they also generate free bodies that then create follow-up for the next turns and perhaps have some even more powerful effects on top of that. It used to be insane to turn 1 body into 3 bodies, but the past years the likes of Sprite, Kushtira and now Snake Eyes have been doing essentially that at a way lower cost with barely any bricks and with a boatload of powerful effects on top. Of course, it is possible that Mali will one day break the game again, and I will be there, ready to slap him into yet another disgusting pile of dark attribute monsters I dare to call a deck.